అందరికీ నమస్కారం. ఈరోజు వెబినార్ సెషన్ ఎంక్వైరీ త్రూ ఫోల్డ్స్కోప్. ఈ సెషన్కి ఆర్పీగా శ్రీ రఫీక్ గారు వ్యవహరిస్తారు. రఫీక్ గారు సీనియర్ రీసెర్చ్ అసోసియేట్గా టాటా ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ ఆఫ్ సోషల్ సైన్సెస్ నందలి సెంటర్ ఫర్ ఎడ్యుకేషన్, ఇన్నోవేషన్ అండ్ యాక్షన్ రీసెర్చ్ విభాగం నందు పనిచేయుచున్నారు. అలాగే హోమీ బాబా సెంటర్ ఫర్ సైన్స్ ఎడ్యుకేషన్ నుండి పిహెచ్డి చేయించున్నారు. ఇతను కనెక్టెడ్ లెర్నింగ్ ఇనిషియేటివ్ ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ తో కూడా అసోసియేట్ అయి ఉన్నారు. అలాగే ఈ కార్యక్రమానికి ప్యానెల్ మెంబర్స్ గా ఏ రవీందర్, లెక్చరర్ డైట్ మహబూబ్ నగర్, అండ్ రామాంజనేయులు గారు, రిటైర్డ్ లెక్చరర్ డైట్ వికారాబాద్, సత్యనారాయణ గారు, ప్రిన్సిపల్ డైట్ ఖమ్మం గారు వ్యవహరిస్తారు. సాంకేతిక సహాయకులుగా శ్రీ భూమయ్య గారు వ్యవహరిస్తారు. ఐ రిక్వెస్ట్ శ్రీ రఫీక్ గారు స్టార్ట్ వెబినార్ సెషన్.
Good morning all. Thank you sir for introducing me. So today we are going to continue what we started yesterday. Yesterday we learned how to use Google Lens and such similar apps. So that's nothing but a tool. Today we are going to look at another tool. That was a digital tool. This one is a microscope. And we are going to see how we can use these tools for inquiry, mostly open-ended inquiry, but all grades of inquiry-based learning. So let's start directly with the presentation. So I'll go to So I will not go into details about inquiry learning or its phases or its levels. For that, I'm assuming that either you will read it or learn it, or you maybe already know it. If not, then I will post at the end of the session some videos where you can learn about inquiry-based learning or inquiry learning. Okay, so due to limited time, we will focus our discussion and webinar on tools. But before that, I just wanted to set a background for why do we want to use inquiry in classroom or inquiry in our science education, and why do we need to use this kind of tool, Google Lens or Foldscope.
Rafik, sorry, your screen is frozen.
Sorry?
The screen is frozen.
My screen is frozen?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now?
No, sorry. It's just...
Can you see I'm changing my slides?
No, sorry.
So what should I do?
You haven't shared your screen. It doesn't show.
Okay. Sorry. I haven't shared my screen. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So basically, give me a second. I will share my screen.
It's okay. Now it's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'm sharing my screen. Okay. I hope you can see it now.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, the webinar is about inquiry through Foldscope. So I will spend a little bit of time talking about inquiry, and then we'll directly go to Foldscope. So I wanted to just talk about these two important points. So if we directly ask a really fundamental question, that what is the aim of science education? Why do we teach science in schools and colleges? Is it only to give or to provide collection of facts to students. Generally, textbooks have a lot of information. Is it only to provide that? No doubt that students need to know certain facts, but we also want to develop a culture, scientific culture in our society. So if you read a position paper uh, on science education, see 2000 in 2005 our national curriculum framework was adopted, and it has the various position papers. So position paper on science education very clearly says about developing scientific temper. Even our constitution mandates it. Our constitution says that uh, citizens should have scientific temper, and then government should or everybody should strive to develop scientific temper. So what is scientific temper? It is part of science culture, thinking the way scientists think, logically, use evidence, use data, and then use logic to derive conclusion from those data. So we want to, when we say why do we want to teach science in schools, even if let's say they don't want to choose science as a career after 10 or 12, still we have a compulsory science education till 10, because we think that to be a good citizen, a individual needs education in science, because in day-to-day life lot of decisions an individual has to take, which can be which needs logical thinking and scientific reasoning, starting from voting to even watching or reading newspaper, or any, you take uh, any aspect of our life. So we want to develop certain skill in our students along with all the syllabus, what we teach and everything. But what are those skills? So we want to teach them how to think logically, how to investigate something, how to observe, how to keenly observe, systematically observe, how to create hypotheses, how to test those hypotheses, how to design an experiment to test an hypothesis, how to interpret the results of the experiment, and then how do you communicate. So these are certain skills we want to develop in our students along with teaching the facts. So I will not go into the details of inquiry based learning, but there are various approaches to education, and one of the approach is inquiry based education, in which you don't actually directly start with the facts or information about any topic. It generally starts with exploring material, asking questions, and then sharing ideas. So it's a different way of learning concepts. So as I said earlier, this workshop is about a tool. So yesterday we learned about Google Lens, right? Today we are going to learn about an app, a tool called Foldscope. So I'll stop sharing my video. Did I stop sharing or is it still sharing? Okay. Yeah, I'll stop. Yeah, now I stop. Okay, so this is the Foldscope. It is nothing but a telescope, microscope. Okay, but why have I have selected this is because it is very cheap. It costs around 300 to 400 rupees depending upon where you buy, but generally you can say 350 rupees is an average cost. You can actually carry it in your pocket. It's always in my bag. I always carry it everywhere. It gives you relatively good magnification. It gives you 140x magnification, and then it is very robust. Nothing happens to it. You can actually, even if the paper is this is made of paper, and if even if paper is damaged, you can just take another paper and make it. What is important is just this lens, and it is designed by an Indian inventor whose name is Manu Prakash. But if you don't have this, you can use any telescope, any microscope, even the compound microscope or whatever digital microscope. There are a lot of different kinds of microscope available in the market. So what I'm going to tell you is applicable or is can be done with any microscope. But for today, I'm using this microscope, but you can do it with any microscope. So I'll just quickly show you how this microscope can be used. So later on, I will give you some example of inquiry using microscope. But yesterday, while cutting onion, when I was cooking my dinner, I noticed that the onion has black powder on it. Many of you must have already, sometime you must have seen this, that generally in rainy season, onions have this black powder growth on it. So I just wanted to see, I doubt it's a fungal growth. So I just wanted to confirm if it is actually fungal growth. So I'm just removing small screen so that the black powder is visible. Then what I will do is, I will just take a small piece of tape. This is simple tape. And I will just cut it, a small piece of this tape. And I will simply touch the powder, that blackish spot, with the tape. So the sticky part will catch the powder which is there on the lens. And then I'll take a simple slide, glass slide, and then just paste this on the glass slide. So now the sample is on the glass slide. Then I'll take the microscope. I will put it, a slide in the microscope, and I'll just write, because I'm indoor right now, I will use an external light source, attach a light source, and then I'll just observe if I can see it. Okay, so now I can see. So now there are two or three ways of observing with this telescope, microscope. Why I'm saying telescope, I don't know. So either you can directly observe with your eyes, or you can actually use a light source and then project on wall, or the third option is you can actually attach your phone and then observe. So now I'm going to attach the phone so that you all can observe. Okay. Can you see that black thing in the center? So that's conidia of a fungus. And then there is a black ball. Then there is a handle. So that is a stalk. And then, so you will see lot of such conidias. So here it is another one. So this confirms that the black powder which we saw is actually I think I'll try to zoom if I can zoom. Okay, I think now it is better. Can you see?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is I'm certain now that this is a fungus, and I can also take photo of it so that we can actually use Google Lens to identify it. I don't know how to take photo with this. Maybe I'll have to take screenshot. I'm not able to. I'll just open the camera and take photo. Okay. So now I took the photo with the microscope. So I hope you were able to see the fungal structure with the round conoidea, then the stalk, and then this hyphal structure at the end. Okay. So now I can show you the pictures I took. So I'll share the screen. Okay. I'll go to gallery, camera, and these are the pictures I took just now. So let's try to see if I can uh, I'm trying to open it in Google Lens. Where is Google Lens? Maybe I'll directly go to Google Lens. Google Lens is not that good with the microscopic pictures, but I think fungus it should be able to work. Let's see which one is good. This one is good. It is showing my picture only. This is Idurafis. I am on Twitter. Okay, let's try another picture. Let's try this one. Okay, now it is showing onion mold. Observing onion black mold. So this is black mold on onion. So now we know that this is actually black mold on onion. Okay, so that was one example. So you can use this microscope to observe anything, and in most of the cases, you actually even don't need staining or anything. So I'll give you another example. So this was something which I kept on slide, but actually I don't even need to keep things on slide. So uh, right now we all are using masks, but it is actually difficult to uh, decide when we are choosing mask which one is good and which one is bad, because there is so much variety of masks in the market. So one best way of doing it is you wear the mask and then blow, and if you hold a candle and if or your any flame, and if it can actually uh, you can see if it is the air coming it out and affecting the flame. But if we have a microscope, then we can do a very systematic observation. So I have a mask. I will just take the mask. I have very different kinds of masks. So I have three different kinds of mask. This one is surgical mask, which generally doctors wear. This is a cloth mask, and this is also cloth mask. But these are different, made by different people and with different material. So right now also you can see through this, it is difficult to see light. Through this, you can actually see my face, and through this you can see, but not that clear. So this will also give you some idea which one is best. So this is the least. This will also prevent, but not that much. Then this and then this. But we can actually observe. So under telescope, a microscope, we can see the pore size. So generally, the virus is very small, extremely small. It is 0.3 micron. And but virus cannot travel independently. It travels through micro droplets or aerosol, very small water droplets, which are created when we speak. So the droplet size is bigger. It has like hundreds of or thousands of virus particles inside one single drop, and those droplets need to be we need to stop those droplets either from going out through your mouth or while breathing coming in. So I'll just attach. So basically, what I can do is I can simply take a mask like this and then keep like this, and I can directly observe. And then I will see. So I'll show you what you will see. So I'll just take the camera, change it to back mode. Attach. So this is the second middle wala mask, which one I said is a little better. Okay, this is that mask. So you can see that the difference or the gap between various threads is actually not that big. So this will be good enough to trap the droplets. Now I will take the mask through which you could see my face, and I will try to see how is that mask. So I will just put the mask. So there are gaps. You can see clearly if I point towards light, there are really big gaps. Can you see? Shashank, can you confirm?
Yeah.
Okay, so there are such big gaps. If I measure it, it will be around 80 to 100 microns. So these masks will not be very effective against in trapping the micro droplets, water droplets. And if I take the third mask, which is the surgical mask, so we'll see how the surgical mask looks under microscope. So surgical mask, it actually there are no, it's not woven. It's very different kind of mask. Surgical mask is actually, you see these small fibers and how they are arranged in random this thing, and it has multiple layers. So this is the inside layer. Okay, this is the inside layer. Now I'll show you the outside layer. and this is the outside layer. You see, so it's a very different kind of mask. Here, even if you see gap in between those fibers, because it's multiple layer, so it's like even if something is escapes this layer, it will be trapped in second layer, third layer, like that. Okay. I have touched the masks, so I'll keep this mask and I'll wash my hands. Just give me a minute. Sorry for the interruption. Okay, so now you can see how a simple tool can actually be very useful in inquiry. So now I'll give some examples of some systematic inquiry with microscope. So you can see we did a small inquiry right now. The question was how to decide if a mask is good or not. And then with really simple observations, what you need to do is just take photos keeping same magnification of various masks. And you can also calculate the pore size, the opening size, and then read on internet what is the size you needed to trap droplet, if it matches with that size or not. And then through that, you will get to know that whether this mask is good or not. Okay, so now I will again share my screen so that I can give some examples of okay. So now I will give examples of all kinds of inquiry. There is a confirmation. There are levels of inquiry: confirmation, structured, guided, and open-ended. Okay, so here is one example of open-ended inquiry. So this is one of the open-ended inquiry I had done. So while coming back from office one day, I noticed that one plant had leaves, and then those leaves had things like this. There were these small round growths on its leaves. I had seen it before also many times, but at that time I didn't have a microscope in my bag. So this time I just took one leaf, and my guess was that my hypothesis was this is like cancerous growth, where cell is not actually having a controlled growth. So growth becomes uncontrolled, and then these nodules are formed. And I was very till that day I was very satisfied with that analysis or that explanation. But that day I decided to dig deeper. So I just brought that leaf at home, and then what I did is I simply cut open that one of the nodules. And then to my surprise, what I saw was amazing. It was, I was expecting it just a blob of uncontrolled growth, but it was not. It was actually like a ball, and it was hollow. There was a space inside. And to my surprise, there was one small larva, insect larva inside. I think you can see in the center, there was a very small larva in. So this was as if it is a home built for that particular larva. So this is the larva which was inside it. So now I was not sure how did this larva go inside, because I checked this this ball, and it was not open from any side. It was from there was no hole in it to go also. It was closed from uh, all the sides. So what I did is then I took that larva and kept in microscope, and then this is how it looked under the microscope. So it had eyes, 2 eyes. There were small antennas at the front. So it has a very nicely segmented structure, body structure. So when I didn't kill the larva. I just took the live larva and kept it on microscope, and then this is what I saw. Then I wanted to find out how did it go inside. I also took the video from the dorsal side. I flipped the organism and again took a video. So it had a really nice big legs. It also has near its mouth, it had something with which it actually must be eating the that leaf. Then I wanted to find out how did it go. So I took a vertical section in the plane of the leaf. So this is the leaf, and then this is how, if you take a vertical section, this is how it looks. So you can see actually there is no opening, and it is in between leaf. Okay. So I wanted to now find out if it's a separate structure which is grown, or it is actually extension of leaf or not. So for that, what I did is I took a really thin section of that vertical thing and kept it in microscope. And what I observed is I went from one end of the leaf to other end, and it was continuous growth. So which means that it was not a separate ball which later on attached to it. It is grown out of that leaf. So it's a part of leaf. Only it is systematically grown and become a ball. So this was all based on my speculation that it is actually part of. So through my observation, what I found was that there is an insect inside. That means it is not a cancerous growth because it's very systematic growth. And then it is not something which is the insect or the larva was already inside. It is not coming from outside, and that growth larva itself actually maybe created that or induced that growth because it is part of the leaf. Then I tried to first identify that uh, insect, and then I read a lot of papers about it on internet. So I found a really nice paper by Anant Narayan Raman. So this is an Indian person, but he is in Australia. So these kind of balls, I got to know that are called plant balls, and they are induced, meaning they are actually created by insects. So what happens is, actually the insect, what it does is it sits on a leaf, and then like a needle, it inserts its needle into the leaf and lays egg inside it, the leaf. And then when that egg hatches and the larva comes out, it releases some chemicals which induces this gall formation. So it's a very controlled growth, which means the insect or that larva is actually using plant's own system to create a home for it till it becomes adult. And then when it becomes adult, it opens the that ball or the gall and comes out. Then I found a really nice BBC documentary about these galls and how fascinating they are. So this is a documentary by David Attenborough, and it's a really nice documentary which explains this fascinating connection. How so it's not even it doesn't actually do much harm to the plant. It does reduces the area available for photosynthesis, but other than that, it doesn't kill the plant. So it's you cannot call it a parasite. It's little complex than that, and it is also not clear how plant is benefited through it. It is clear that the insect is getting benefited, but not sure how plant gets it. Then I found another amazing. So I also identified the this thing, but I found another amazing fact about it, which I didn't know and I didn't observe in my observation. So there is another insect. What it does is it inserts its egg inside this larva. So you see the larva on the left bottom and the insect on the right bottom. So the insect on the right bottom insert its egg inside this larva, and when the egg hatches, it comes out and eats this larva. There are these three levels of so it's a very complex relation happening there. Okay, so then I learned about one paper who actually specifically talked about this particular species of the insect, and it was in 2000. It was very recently actually identified. It was identified in 2008, so it's not really old. So such simple. So this is the lady who worked on it and identified these new species, which which I observed in my galls. Okay, and these galls are actually you see this green area, they are found everywhere, and they are very plant specific. So this is one example. So this is one example of a open-ended inquiry I wanted to share. So if you have a tool like a microscope and internet and Google Lens, you can actually inside in your classroom or not if possible in classroom, outside classroom, or you can dedicate one day to develop these skills. So you witness that in this exploration, what all skills were needed. So observation was needed, experimentation skill was needed, then also logically thinking was needed, then using other resources like Google Lens, then Google Scholar and all other. So this is how the practicing scientists also work. They follow the trail, and then that leads to new discovery. So what I did was not a new discovery. It was new for me, but it was already discovered by other scientists. But in our classrooms, what we want to do is we want to enact this discovery process, this inquiry process, so that children develop that skill. Okay, so I have few more examples. I will not go in detail in those examples, but I still want to show few more examples of the inquiry. So here is another example. So we all have a ceiling fan in our homes, right? So this is you can read this in detail on my Twitter handle. So if you go to Twitter and just type Idurafi, you'll find this. So I'll go very fast. Oh, this is another example. Okay, so before that, I will come to this part. So you must have seen such marks on leaves. I remember in my childhood, we used to hear this story that whenever you see such marks, they used to say that they are made by snakes. And then I remember people used to do lot of religious, rituals to get rid of these things. But it's very simple. If you just open that small patch and then observe what is inside, you will notice that there is small larva inside it. So it is very similar to gall, but it doesn't create any ball around it. What it does is it simply eats the green part in it, and it doesn't disturb the entire leaf so that it doesn't fall down. Okay, you can. This is how it looks under microscope. So these are called leaf miners. So they mine the leaf. So if you observe the video, it has a really nice. Look at its mouth. Its mouth has a really nice structure with which it can actually eat the leaf. It's like these big tools which are used to create tunnels. So in Mumbai right now the metro work is going on. So there are these big borers. So these are this mouth of this insect is like that. Okay. Then this is from other side. Then I also found a really nice video. So this is from Hoshangabad science teaching program, and you can actually watch it on YouTube. I won't go into detail, but it's a story of how in a village when this kind of marks were there on the leaves, people were very scared. But one school girl actually solved this problem and showed that there's nothing. It's not any sharp or anything. Curse or sharp or anything. It's just the simple insect which is inside. And if you see here in the center, you see this white mark is very small. So that is where the egg is hatched. And as it eats, it becomes bigger, 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 bigger. And when it becomes adult, you see there is a small, end is very big. So that is where it must have opened and become a insect and gone out. Okay. Now I'll go to another example. This is maybe last example. I have many examples, but I think we don't have enough time. This one is on Twitter. Okay. So this is those two examples were from let's say life sciences. but this is from another for physics and other part, but it also has a life sciences part. So we all have this ceiling fan in our home, right? So while cleaning the fan, I noticed that it has lot of dust, but the dust is actually very thick near the edges of the blade. Okay, so this is the blade. So here near the edges, you'll see it's not the entire fan where the dust accumulates. It is near the edges. And when I took small sample of the dust and kept it under the microscope, so I took this sample, this thick sample, and then put it under microscope. So what I saw was very interesting. So there were these long threads inside it. Then there were small different colored threads. There were small I don't have all the photos here, small, really small colored particles. So there are so much inside it. Now the question was, how does these things go there? I mean, these are really huge long threads. What are they, from where they come, and then what can it tell us about so this is how I was saying, this is how it is actually deposited on uh, the edges of the this thing, blade. So then I did some investigation, and then I found that if you take fan from various places, for example, in Mumbai, the things you will see on the fan, the dust or the composition of dust is different from the things you will see on uh, the edges of the fan from different places. So, for example, I asked my uh, family member from my hometown, and they sent me these pictures. So what the top one is from Mumbai, and the bottom one is from my village. It's just a really small place. So there the color is not black. So and it is you can say grayish, but it's not black. And the composition is also very different, which shows that uh, the air quality in the room where the fan is actually decides what will be deposited there. So it can be a really nice tool to find out what is there in the air. So I did further investigation and found out that actually the Mumbai one had some really interesting things. So it had microplastics, very small particles of plastic, which we actually don't even see with our eyes, but they are continuously circling around it. When we switch on our fans, there is a lot of microplastic. It also goes inside our body when we eat or breathe. Then there is lot of soot, which is coming from that black color is because of the soot, which is coming from the vehicles. Unburned, it is unburned carbon. Then, to my surprise, there were particles of so there were small particles which are coming from our skin, our hair. So inside our house we shed lot of skin every day, which we don't see with our eyes. There are these small skin particles, but when we switch on the fan, they go and they get deposited. Then there are a lot of fibers, so our cloth fibers, then our hair, and then I don't know what all kind of fiber, maybe fiber from coming out and all that. Then also it's a really good example to talk about. Oh, sorry, I closed it. It's also a really good example of to talk about aerodynamics. So I also found a study where they actually did a study. It was from Ahmedabad of how does air flows in a room when you switch on a ceiling fan. and that explains why only on the edges you see thick deposit, and that also lead to solving that problem of deposition with a very simple solution. All you have to do is attach a very small foam on top of the blade. Maybe you can go to my this long post and read about it. We have only 10 minutes, so I will just come back to presentation. Okay, I was already on the presentation. Okay, so these are the examples of various inquiry activities one can do. Okay, so now all these examples I shared were done by me as an individual. Okay, so you can ask, is it possible to do it in the classroom? So I don't have photos right now to share, but it's on one of my blog. So maybe I will send the link there, where I have done these kind of activities with school students from some tribal villages in various parts of the country, and also regular school children. So you don't have to do this kind of activity every day in your classroom, but you can assign a single day in a week or few hours in a single in a week, or you can assign a week throughout a month, or in a 2 month or something like that. So this is to supplement what they already are learning in their classrooms, but this will be creating that culture, scientific temper on, and building those skills, and also it will help them connect these separate pieces they are learning in their science classroom, math classroom, and physics, or all other subjects. And also this can encourage them to explore outside the classroom. So they can do this kind of exploration on their own at home, and teacher can help them in this understand this expression. Or so the role of teacher will be to become a facilitator. Whenever children are stuck, you help them to come out of it. Okay, yeah, so I think that's it. I wanted to share today. I will stop sharing my screen, and I think we have time 7 minutes for question. So yeah, please go ahead and ask question.
రఫీక్ గారు, ఈరోజు మీరు ఛాత్రోపాధ్యాయులకే కాకుండా ఉపాధ్యాయులకు ఉపయోగపడేటటువంటి మంచి టూల్ ను పరిచయం చేశారు. ఫోల్డ్ స్కోప్ అనేటటువంటిది విద్యార్థుల లోపల అన్వేషణ నైపుణ్యాలని ఏ విధంగా పెంచుతుంది, అలాగే సైంటిఫిక్ టెంపర్ ని పెంచి శాస్త్రీయ దృక్పథాన్ని వారి లోపల పెంపొందించి సరి అయినటువంటి దిశలో వెళ్ళడానికి మార్గదర్శకాన్ని ఇచ్చే విధంగా ఆ టూల్ ఏ విధంగా ఉపయోగపడుతుందో చాలా చక్కగా వివరించారు. ఇప్పుడు మనము కొన్ని క్వశ్చన్స్ ప్యానెల్ మెంబర్ నుంచి క్వశ్చన్స్ తీసుకుందాం. సత్యనారాయణ గారు.
ఎస్ సార్, వినపడుతుందా సార్?
క్వశ్చన్ చెప్పండి. వినపడుతుంది
సార్. గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ టు ఎస్ఆర్టీ ఫ్యాకల్టీ, డైట్ ఫ్యాకల్టీ, సిటీ, ఐఏఎస్సి and TIS Mumbai, then students of DIET, CT and IISc, sir. Since the 3 days, we are watching wonderful sessions webinar sessions by TIS Mumbai. Thank you, sir. Sir, my question is, how is open-ended inquiry useful in the classroom?
Can you repeat the question? I missed first part.
How is open-ended inquiry useful in the classroom?
Okay. Yeah, I got the question. So the question is, how is open-ended inquiry useful in classroom?
Yes, sir.
So as I discussed earlier, there are two aspects of why we teach science in classroom. One is
Yes, sir.
that you want to teach the recent understanding about world to our students, so they should know certain facts, certain information. So we do give that information. But that's not the only aim of the education. We also
Yes.
want them to develop certain skills. We want to develop scientific reasoning, scientific temper, observation skills, experimentation skills. That's why we have lab sessions assigned in our curriculum,
Yes.
in our timetable also. So the role of open-ended inquiry can be teacher before teaching a certain topic. Let's say in next week, teacher want to teach blood circulation or ecosystem, something like
Okay.
this,
Okay.
a chapter. So what teacher can do is ask them, give them some questions, which can be, so these are inquiry based questions. For example, question can be like this, find
How
out
can-
how many, what kind of life forms are there in your house, and where
Okay.
do they get their food. So this is the task given to them. This is the inquiry. This is the question given to them.
Okay.
And then they are children are given 1 week or so to do this exercise. And when next week teacher is starting to teach ecosystem chapter, then he will start with this discussion. So can you tell me what did you find?
Okay.
Okay. So they will say, oh, we have a insect, we have a cockroach, we have ants, we have a lizard, the house lizard, and human being, and so
Cat.
things like that. So then you can use this example to say, oh, so this particular is a primary consumer, that one is a secondary. So in science they are called secondary consumers, like that. Instead of using example from the book, you can use from their inquiry.
Okay.
రవీందర్ గారు డైట్ మహబూబ్ నగర్. ఓకే, రామంజనేల్ గారు మీ దగ్గర ఏమైనా క్వశ్చన్స్ ఉంటే
Sir, can I ask one more question?
yes, okay,
Sir,
continue.
sir, how can you promote discovery learning in the classroom in the present context?
Okay, so how do you promote in the present context? Because
Yes,
we have really tight schedule.
Yes,
We have all
syllabus.
so many constraints, time constraints, syllabus
Yes,
constraints, there are exams, school has so many things. So
Yes,
that's
sir.
why it is a good idea to have something like this, something like a science club.
Yeah.
In classroom or in our school, where it's possible that all children may not be interested in everything.
Yeah.
Because every child may not be interested in science. Somebody will be interested in maths or arts or sports or anything. So these interested student can actually have spend extra times. You can assign a small corner for that science club, and then science club can take initiative, and then other students can join them.
Okay.
So you
Okay,
don't
thank
have to put it into the curriculum or into the schedule. It can
Okay.
be a parallel activity.
Okay.
మిగతా
And
ప్యానల్స్
teacher
మెంబర్
doesn't
దగ్గర
have to be very fully involved into it. It can be
Okay.
just a facilitator or guide.
Okay.
ఓకే, తర్వాత క్వశ్చన్స్ ఎవరైనా ప్యానల్ మెంబర్స్ దగ్గర క్వశ్చన్స్
Yes.
ఉన్నాయా? yes, రామంజనేల్ గారు.
Yes, Narendra. Yes. Rafiq ji,
Yeah.
really, it was a nice presentation with
Thank you.
good examples, and they have given a good demonstration also. And actually, you have correlated with this pandemic period, showing different types of masks and which one is useful for people to use. So, good presentation, sir. And here I have a question. Is there any difference between microscope and foldscope? And why should we use this foldscope instead of microscope?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, and thank you for this question also. So actually, Foldscope is just a brand name. It is also a microscope. Like there are so many other types of compound microscope, light microscope, dissection microscope. So this is a microscope. It is called Foldscope because it's like origami. The way we make a cap or boat
Yes.
using paper, like that you fold paper and make microscope. And it has a single ball lens. So the same lens acts as an objective and also eyepiece. The difference between this
Okay, fine.
microscope and other microscope is that the other microscopes, they are expensive, and
Yes.
it is difficult to carry them on the field. So this is a good microscope to, you can say
Yes.
it's a good field microscope. you can easily carry
We
anywhere.
can-
And then other
yeah, carry anywhere,
one
and
more
as well
important
as
thing
we
is
can
that
fold it.
attaching a phone is very easy with it. You can also
Right.
project, if you don't have phone in a classroom, you can project it on wall. So
Yes.
that way it is and it is rugged also. For example, if you carry huge bulky compound microscope, and if you drop it accidentally, then it is gone. But this one is because of paper and a ball, you can wash it, you can throw it, nothing will happen to it. But there are limitations to it also. So because while observing, you have to keep it to very close to your eyes. You have to take a lot of precautions. So you cannot have a really harmful sample in it. It might fall on your face or something like that. Second thing, you cannot observe while directly pointing towards sun, then it can damage your eyes. So, and it also has a limitation that you are holding in your hand and it shakes little bit. But because it is magnifying 140 times, that small shake is also can affect the quality of the image you are observing. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Rafiq ji. And one of the teacher training was asking a question that can we prepare this fold scope with locally available material?
Yes, but the lens, see, lens also you can prepare, but preparing a high quality lens is it's a very skillful task. So the lens, how to make this lens, how to make everything is open. So you can read the research paper, and if you have that kind of skills, you can locally also make it. It is open. It is not a secret.
Thank you. Thank you.
ఇంకా ఏమైనా క్వశ్చన్స్ ఉన్నాయా ప్యానల్ మెంబర్స్? ఓకే, రఫీక్ గారు ఈరోజు ఫోల్డ్ స్కోప్ అనేటటువంటి చక్కని టూల్ ను పరిచయం చేశారు. ప్రతి సైన్స్ టీచర్ దగ్గర ఈజీగా ఉపయోగించడానికి వీలున్నటువంటిది, తర్వాత చాలా తక్కువ ఖర్చుతో కూడుకున్నటువంటిది, మరి చాలా చక్కగా ఉదాహరణలతో వివరించడం జరిగింది. థ్యాంక్ యూ రఫీక్ గారు, థ్యాంక్ యూ. నెక్స్ట్ రేపటి వెబినార్ సెషన్ విజువలైజింగ్ సౌండ్ పైన ఉంటుంది. తప్పకుండా టీచర్ ట్రైనింగ్ అందరూ కూడా రేపటి సెషన్ ని చూసి సద్వినియోగం చేసుకోవాల్సిందిగా కోరుచున్నాం. థ్యాంక్ యూ.